Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. So I know I haven't recorded in a while, but y'all know whenever I kind of get distant in regards to making a longer video, God is dealing with me about something. So I've been sick. I can only assume this started from maybe strep or a cold, but I've been sick. This is now the fourth week. First week I had a really bad sore throat and a cough. Next week I finally stopped suppressing the symptoms of the cough so that way I could address the sore throat and then allow myself to cough so that way I could get the mucus out. I got an antibiotic that week. The cough didn't get any better. And I finally went back last week, got an inhaler that helped me to be able to sleep. So the entire time I wasn't really getting restful sleep except for when I was taking the medicine to suppress the cough. Anyway, I have since realized why that happened. So I'm one of those people that I need pretty dramatic things to happen for me to see when God is talking to me sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I prayed this crazy prayer. I don't remember when I prayed this prayer. I prayed asking God that he would give me a physical reaction when there was a situation or a person or something I needed to be alerted to. And without fail, God has answered that every time. From alerting me in my body when I'm stressed, letting me know when certain foods aren't for me, like me having a physical reaction, to people and relationships and situations. Like it will just be abrasive to me in some kind of way, or I will have some kind of physical symptom in my body. So of course, I take me getting sick as a sign that I needed to really sit down and just like stop doing everything. Because my lesson for this year, my one word for this year has been expansion. And what it has looked like for me has been the total opposite. God has had me contracting in a lot of ways. So stepping down, I used to have a part-time job, actually like 2 part-time jobs at the beginning of the year, in areas that I'm really passionate about, but God said step down. He made me pull back from friends and relationships to focus on studying for the LSAT, which I retook earlier this year. And it was in that, like, where I began to see the beginning signs of burnout. Then, of course, the whole burnout situation over the last, 9 months, which came to a head in August and September with me working nearly around the clock. Although that is now done, God allowed all these things to happen for me to see. I told you to let some stuff go, to pull back from things. I told you to let certain things go. And one thing in particular, I had not let go, but I have set a date to let it go. All that to say, God gave me this thing. I got sick. I took several COVID tests. I've taken 3 tests now, and they've all come back negative. The antibiotics did get rid of the symptoms of the sore throat, but the cough was still there. And all of that, not really getting rest because I'm up coughing at night, and then just the aggravation of it ultimately forced me to sit down. And I began to reflect over the last week. So I talked to one of my best friends last week, and I mentioned how all of these pressures I have been putting on myself. So God reminded me of this book. And all of my fervent alumni, raise your hand. So from 2016 to 2020, I would read the book Fervent with a group of women, and we would work through and pray through different areas of things that we're facing in our lives, as well as praying through the different strategies in which the enemy would attack us. One of those strategies was strategy number 8, which is your pressures. And so as I was talking to my best friend, I mentioned I need to go back and read that chapter because I've just had all this pressure on me to do all these things. And those pressures have been looking like pressure to perform at work. Number 1, imposter syndrome is real. Like, I have been in software engineering and tech. I have been writing code for nearly 20 years. Like, 2025 will be 20 years of me writing code. And I have allowed different situations, attacks at work, to make me feel invalidated in this space. Although I have been here, I've gotten awards. Back in 2012, I got a Modern Day Technology Leader Award. I've gotten recognized for my performance, stock options and grants and all of that stuff, promotions, all of these things that have said that you are doing well, you are excelling, we want to retain you in this field. Not to mention, I've been able to operate and do things, giving back, something that's near and dear to my heart, through tech by opening the door for other people to get in tech. So I have all these pressures I put on myself. That pressure to perform, pressure to show up and say yes all the time, pressure to be there for my friends, my family, my boyfriend, pressure to take care of myself. One of the things I was told is that because I had a kidney transplant, that there was a strong likelihood for me to develop type 2 diabetes. And the irony is that type 2 diabetes is one of the major causes of kidney failure. I didn't have diabetes. This was a immune-related diabetes. So that pressure in the back of my mind, I have to stay healthy. I have to get on top of any weight gain so that way I can overcome this and I can beat this. And I had all of these other things in my mind, and it was just like a light bulb, a big shining light. Like, you need to fall back. You need to take all of these things off your plate, and you need to really assess what's most important. So when I talked about this, like operating from a place of being out of alignment and being out of order, I shared this story, and I think I may share a slightly different variation of it because I don't 100% remember it, but it just had a profound effect on me. So the story was a teacher had his students to fill up a jar. So he gave them 3 materials. He gave them rocks, sand, and water. So first they put the sand in, I believe, and then he told them to add the rocks and then add water. But because they had already added the sand, they didn't have enough room for the rocks. And then once they added the water will wash away the sand. And so instead, they redid the experiment and then put the rocks in first, then poured the sand in to fill up any gaps, and then the water next. And so what was the overall lesson in that is that the rocks represented those things that are most important in your life, like your faith, your relationship with your family, like your immediate family, your career for some people, your health, like for me, which is a big thing, and taking care of yourself and things like that. And if we fill up our day, fill up our life with things, the small meaningless things or things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, like the sand, when the storms come, which is represented by the water, we will be washed away in those relationships and areas we didn't prioritize. They will be neglected and they could possibly crumble or be destroyed in the midst of that storm, versus putting the rocks in first, or filling our calendar and schedule with those things that are most important, and then allowing space for whatever else, which is the sand. So that way when the storm does come, we are anchored, and those relationships that are most important are being nurtured. And of course, how God would have it. So Sunday, I went to pick up my son from his grandparents, and his cousin had a pair of Air Force Ones. I literally thought in my mind, I'm going to get my son some of these shoes because little kid shoes are very expensive now. I buy him Jordans, but he tears them up. So I figured, you know what? Let's get him some Air Force Ones. They're nice shoes, and they're not as expensive as the Jordans and other more expensive shoes that I buy him. The crazy thing that happened is I went to check the mail yesterday, and in my mailbox was a pair of Air Force Ones for my son. And the ironic thing is I signed up to be a product tester, and I never knew that I had gotten selected, but I got some shoes for my son. And what God spoke to me in that is that as long as I trust God with everything, he will blow my mind, and he can answer things that I never even uttered. Like, I never said out loud that God, I want to buy my son these shoes, or I really want these shoes for my son. But they showed up at my doorstep. And so if God can get some shoes to me just by me thinking it, what can he do with all these other things that I've been taking on? What can he do when I properly prioritize my time in my day. And one of the biggest things that suffered as a result of me not really focusing on doing what God was telling me to do is the fact that I stopped for a period of time keeping the Sabbath. And that was the time that I got refreshed. I could just rest and do whatever I wanted to do. I could use that time to study the word. I would read my devotions and things, but I would do it in conjunction with me working. And this past Saturday, I actually got to keep the Sabbath. I got to spend time with my son. I got to do something I wanted to do and just relax and not think about all the things that I've been thinking about all these months. And I felt so refreshed. And I realized just how I've been out of order and how me being out of order has really affected everything. So all that to say, main thing I want to say is make sure you have everything in proper order. Make sure you have prioritized your family, your health, your loved ones, whatever those things that are most important. Put those on your calendar first. Put those in first place, of course, with God being number one. And then everything else, if you have room, if you have energy, if you have the mental space for it, then you can add it in. And don't shut yourself off for the possibility that God will perform a miracle for you and blow your mind in some way, because that's how I felt about these shoes. And I took it as a very personal reminder of just how much God loves me. I sat down yesterday and I journaled about something that's been heavy on my mind. And once I wrote it down and journaled it and prayed it to God, that weight came off of me. And that was just yet another reminder of how I've been carrying all these things, putting all this pressure on myself when God didn't create me for that. So I hope that you take something from what I'm saying to remember to put things in proper order. Put your priorities in order. Pray, ask God to show you and give you the plan. Every time I do this, every time I give God something and receive the plan and the vision from him on what things should look like in my life, it goes way better than I could have ever imagined. And God has just been giving me little signs and little reminders along the way that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing what he wants me to do. But I still have to get this thing in order. And if it took me being sick for the last 4 weeks and still sounded like Rasputia, I will take the lesson, and I'm honestly going to pray that he doesn't do this to me anymore. Like, I don't need no more physical effects in my body. I need just like a little tap on my shoulder or a little knowing in my mind. I don't want to be sick like this anymore. But I like to say, like, if God can do that for me, definitely know he can do it for you. But it's just a beautiful reminder of how much God loves us, that there is nothing that will stop God from getting the message to you. So make sure you have your priorities in order. I'm about to go reprioritize mine and make sure if there's anything that I'm concerning myself with, that I give it to him. Have a good night. Bye.